go from 500,000 to 475. And we just have to remind them, nobody runs out for a 1% off sale at Macy's. It just doesn't happen, right? Nobody shows up for those sales. And yet when we get to the right price, then we may have more than one opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
Nah, I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. I know you got 4 more months on the listing, but let's just let it ride. Whoa, something is different. What?
And so they were so.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't believe it. So
Wow.
they were so turned off.
We went to 3.9 million transactions in this country the year prior. We were at 6 million. Feedback from agents, of course, new listings, pending sales in the subject area. So new listings, how would we describe that to a seller? What would it mean to them?
Direct competition.
Thank you. Pendings, what are these?
It could affect their appraisal.
Correct? It could affect their appraisal, and also pendings.
Shoot.
Go ahead.
No, please. Pending just shows what's moving.
Correct. Pendings are evidence, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. While we were on the market, buyers chose another home. In fact, in speaking to their agent, some of those buyers and their agents have shared with me that they found a home that they thought was a better value in your home's price range. So given this information, I'm curious, what do you think the market is telling us about your price? Again, we're asking, we're not telling, right? And then sales, sales are what appraisers are going to use. Exactly. And then the market overall, we all know 6 months is normal market, less than 6 months is going to be a seller's market. And then days on market versus how long the subject's been on the market, interest rates, what interest rates will do. You guys all know, and Bruce, tell me if I'm correct, every 1 point that interest rates change, it affects a buyer's buying power by about 10%, either up or down. So we'll be reporting that. Okay, good. So then we have to ask for the reduction. Now the things that we're going to use when we go to do a price reduction is going to be the same tools that we were using as we were delivering service throughout the entire time from when we listed the house to before we go under contract. So what we want to use is everything that we've been reporting, and then when we get to about 3 weeks to 30 days in, the call's going to sound like this. Will you role play with me, Tony?
Sure.
Okay. Ring, 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 ring.
Hello, Mark.
Tony, thanks so much for taking my call. Say, I really appreciate it. I wanted to reach out to you and give you an update on what we've been doing to market the home and the results that we've received from this.
That would be outstanding, because I was kind of curious why my house hasn't been on the contract yet.
Yes, I know. And because I know that we're getting close to that deadline of you getting to Philadelphia, because the baby's coming beginning of April, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And she's not moving down here, you're still moving up there, right?
That is correct, that's the plan.
So it's going to be really important to get you sold soon. I respect that, thank you so much. So, Tony, what I'm observing is in the last 4 weeks, we've had 7 showings, and we've been on the market for now 28 days, so we're going on almost a full month. And here's the good news. We've had 7 showings, which tells us that our marketing is doing right. We're actually stirring the pot and we're getting buyers to come out and see your home. The only challenge that we're faced with, Tony, is we haven't had any offers, have we?
No, unfortunately.
Okay. So, Tony, my suggestion would be that we make an adjustment to the price so that we can get you more showings and so that we can get you some offers so that you can get to Philadelphia in time for that baby being born. Would you be open to that?
That would be a good idea, but let me ask you a question first.
Sure.
Do you think it'd be wise if we, waited a few more weeks and see if we were just lucky to find someone that comes during that period of time?
You know what, Tony? I appreciate you asking that, because, again, my intention really is never to get you to do something that you don't want to do. I'm here to help you. So, if ultimately you decide that you can afford to wait a few more weeks when that baby's coming in April, I'm okay with that. Whatever you decide, I'm going to back you 100%. And at the same time, can I share with you what concerns me about waiting a few more weeks?
Absolutely.
So Tony, here's one thing that I've noticed. In your community, do you know what the average days on market for a home selling are?
I do not.
So in your community, the average days on market to sell a home is 17.
Okay.
Now we're a month out, and if we wait 3 more weeks, that's going to put us at right at about 50 days that will have been on the market. Tony, I'm just curious, if you were a buyer and you saw that the average days on market for a community are 17, and there was a home on the market for like 50 or 55 days, what questions would come up for you?
Well, why is that house still on the market? Is
Yeah.
there something wrong with the house?
Yeah, exactly. And if a buyer starts to think that there's something wrong with the house, or maybe they think it's overpriced, what ends up usually happening is we start to get no showings at all. So I'm curious, Tony, knowing that your timeline is the beginning of April so that you can get to Philadelphia on time for that grandbaby being born, is that time a luxury that you currently have right now? Or do you think you'd rather get to the right price so we can get you more showings and offers?
Well, Mark, I appreciate it, and that is very important to me to actually get to my daughter's delivery.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel is the right price at this point in time as a reduction to the home that will bring buyers in?
Tony, my suggestion would be that we go from $500,000 to $475,000.
Okay. All right. Well, my daughter's baby is more important than a few dollars, so I'm going to take your advice and we're going to go ahead and get a reduction.
Tony, that makes a lot of sense. So what I'll do, if it's all right with you, is I'm going to get that emailed over to you right away, and I'm going to call all of the agents that have shown your property to let them know about the new price. We're going to stir the pot and let's see if we can get you some activity, okay?
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, great. Questions? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So what about
Can
when
we
you
use
get
the mic for
pushback about 25,000, like a large reduction like that?
Okay,
Like,
so-
sometimes my sellers will be like, could we do 10? I don't want to do 25, because what if we have to lower it again, and then
Yep.
we have no negotiating room?
Yep, that
Is
makes
usually
sense.
the question we'll get.
Well, so that's a good question. And Angela, what I'd like to share with you is, do you remember when we first listed the property?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you remember I shared with you that the market was going to respond in one of 3 ways?
Yes, of course.
And so I'm just going to remind you of that. And if you remember, I shared with you that the first way the market responds is it brings us an offer. And for us to get an offer, we have to have 6 to 8 showings in that 30-day window. And we haven't seen an offer, and yet we've had 7 showings.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the second way that the market responds is if we have those 6 to 8 showings in 30 days and we have no offer, we're 5% high for the market.
Okay.
And I've proven time and time again that when we make that correct adjustment, we get more showings and you get offers, and sometimes we may get more than 1 offer so we can negotiate
So you're
from a
basing it
position
off
of strength.
5%, okay.
Correct.
I didn't realize that, okay, that makes sense.
Yes. So based on that, I mean, we certainly can do a lesser than normal adjustment. It just could take longer. And I don't know, at this stage with, we know that your daughter's going to be having that baby in April. Can you afford the luxury of that time and just sit out there a little bit longer? Or would you prefer to get to the right price so we can get you offers now?
No, of course, I want to get the right price.
Okay, great.
And you're right though, because when you do a price reduction of 25,000, that is enough that you're going to stir interest and
5%.
5%. I meant 25,000.
You're exactly
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
And I don't do math well, so I chose 500,000 and 5% because then it went quick in my head. Exactly. So yeah, that comes up.
Yeah.
And we just have to remind them, nobody runs out for a 1% off sale at Macy's. It just doesn't happen, right? Nobody shows up for those sales. And yet when we get to the right price, then we may have more than 1 opportunity. Does that make sense? Okay.
That's a great thing to say to a bunch of women. No one runs out for a 1% sale.
That is great, isn't it?
Right?
It's a great way to
Know
use
your
the
audience. Know your audience.
listing. It's exactly right.
Well, and the key is, if you remember, is we have to let them know that. When did I let them know that?
Very
Up
beginning.
front.
At the
Yeah.
listing presentation. As soon as we agreed on a price and they asked me, how long do you think it's going to take for it to sell? I was very upfront with them. And I said, the market's going to respond in 1 of 3 ways. So if we're setting that up, then we should
You know
be
what,
in a
I've
good
been
way.
in real estate for a long time, 18 years, and I have never heard anyone say that facts that you said, like 6 to 8 showings or your 5%. over. I've never heard that said, ever. And I'm someone that will go to seminars and trainings, so you're the first one, so I just learned something new.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Really what it comes down to is, and you heard at the beginning, I was too attached to the outcome to look at this from the perspective of what's important to them. And please go ahead.
Is it okay to ask a
Yeah.
question now?
Yeah, would you mind?
Sure.
Thank you.
So what I'm experiencing for the first time is not only an overpriced listing, but the sellers have no motivation.
Okay.
So I've heard of it, I have never been in it,
And now
Yep.
you're in it.
and now I'm in it.
So what you just talked about is the last thing that we're going to talk about in
Okay,
this
perfect.
presentation. So this is
Okay,
perfect. Thank you.
wonderful.
It was a
Thank you.
perfect segue. Thank you.
Okay.
Because we have to be of the mindset that we're not attached to the outcome, so much so that we're going to be willing to give that listing back,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because in all reality, if a seller's motivation, like let's say this particular seller, her daughter said, "Mom, I want to be closer to you." She decides to move to Orlando. Now I call her up one day and we're talking about pricing, and I ask her for a price adjustment, and she said, "Nah, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I know you got 4 more months on the listing, but let's just let it ride." Whoa, something is different, right? I mean, and that happens. Like
Yeah.
you're experiencing that.
Yeah.
Now I've got to ask some questions to find out what that's all about. And that might be, you know, when we first listed the property, you shared with me that it was important for you to have this sold in time so that you could get to Philadelphia early April. What's changed? Well, my daughter's moving down here now.
Yeah.
And you know what? She's going to live with me, and right now we just don't have the funds to be able to go out, especially at interest rates, and buy a bigger house. So we're going to be fine where we're at. So just let it ride, Mark.
So at that point in time, when you hear that, do you continue with the listing or do you let them out of the listing?
You have to evaluate it from what's most important to who?
To them.
To them.
Right.
Exactly. And so in all reality, if they're not going to move and the market's not there for them financially, at that point, if I just let that listing sit on the market and it goes out to 180 days, that's still in the history. That's not serving the client, because then when it goes back on the market again, that history is still there. So the conversation might sound like this: "Mrs. Seller, it sounds to me like your motivation has changed, and now the only way that you would consider even selling is it's going to be about the price. Well, we've been on the market for 45 days, and the market's proven to us that this isn't the right price. So may I offer a suggestion to you? Let's get you off the market. Because the longer that you sit on the market, your home's going to get a stigma. And I'm here to protect you, not to get something from you. Yes, it might be great if I leave your home on the market. I might still get calls on my sign for buyers, and yet this isn't about them, and it's not about me. This is about you. And my suggestion would be that we get you off the market so that when you do decide to go back on the market, your home doesn't have a stigma in the history of the multiple listing service. So may I offer the right suggestion would be, let's take you off the market now. Fair enough?
Yeah, but I feel like even then, they wouldn't be willing to negotiate because they've settled now, the daughter's coming. So even if they get an offer that's almost good, they're not willing to move.
You're
And
exactly.
the chances on you getting that listing in the future are way higher than if you're trying to
Force them
convince
to do
them
it, yeah.
for your
That,
list.
you just said a mouthful. Because what are they going to remember? They're going to remember that gave up a listing so that they could be okay.
Yeah.
And then when they get all those calls from agents when it comes off the market, they're going to have you in their mind as the agent that wasn't looking out for your interests. You were looking out for their interests. And it protects the relationship.
And you'll get the daughter's list, the daughter's purchase as well when she goes out of her house and
That's
buys her own.
correct.
Quick story, one of my neighbors was about to list her house, and she decided to rent it.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my other neighbors is a realtor in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
She's also like the head of the HOA. So long story short, she approached them that she was working on getting it listed for them, then they changed their mind and decided to rent it for a year first. And the agent said to my neighbor, well, I was already planning on that commission for the year. Like,
What?
And so they were so.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So
Wow.
they were so turned off, they won't use her. And so now I'm listing it next month. And I wasn't pushing them, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they were like, you were so helpful and you helped us and you were understanding. And it was all, I said, well, I don't really feel comfortable, because she's gonna be upset when you list with me. And they're like, well, she brought that on herself, she didn't have our interest at heart, she had her commission at heart. So that's the exact point you were making, so.
Stick with the outcome.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Well, I'm sure Mark has seen this, he's been in for a while.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy.
Most realtors, especially today, most realtors, they don't see the big picture. Well, if I need a microphone, something's wrong.
It's okay.
They don't see the big picture, so they don't want to help someone today to create a life for them and everyone else down the
Yeah.
road. They want something today, happening today. So that's where, unfortunately, the benefit to us
Yeah.
is that we get everything that they lose because of the fact that they are not looking at the big picture.
And you know what even the greater
So,
benefit is?
yeah.
Is when we come from that place of contribution
Mhm.
Yeah.
internally, what's our internal experience?
We get to sleep at night.
Yeah.
We get
yeah.
to sleep at night, exactly.
Mhm.
And then when we're in that state of we feel correct and right, are we more productive?
Yes.
Are we more creative?
Yeah.
Are we more capable at hitting the next goal?
Yeah.
It's like, it
Well,
just
and they
makes the whole
appreciate
thing.
you.
I know I haven't been in real estate too long, but there's I can't use the right word, but it's a lot of realtors getting into
Yeah.
business for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it, and like, it's like, how are you getting these listings, and you're
Yeah.
using cell phone photos, and
Mhm.
you're doing this, and like, it's like, I really got into business because I love it,
Right.
and then you
You wanna
have
help.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I told Angela, there's times like, where I'm taking care of both sides
Right.
of the job, like.
Yeah.
Because they don't know
yes.
how to do it, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, Adrika, here's the good news, is the proverbial tree is being shaken because what's happening with interest rates rising. And our transaction count last year, we went to 3.9 million transactions in this country. The year prior, we were at 6 million.
Yeah.
So the tree's getting
It's
shaken in our
weeding out
favor.
the agents that
Yeah.
weren't in it, you know, for the
Yeah,
long
for-
haul.
Yes.
Or, you know, or
And-
weren't doing their best.
And on that note, first of all, I want to express gratitude because you guys are all of like mind. So it's great to be in a room with you.